We are recording the interview of Ann Foster. This interview is being conducted by David Barry and Jennifer Swavey from Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. Also in attendance is Terry Perkins. This interview is being recorded at Terry Lynn Art Studio and Gallery in February at Fairborn, Ohio. It is 2:45 p.m. on January 30th, 2017. Hello, Ann. Let's just first start with your background information. When and where were you born?
Charleston, West Virginia, the 9th of April, 1940.
And did any of your relatives or family members serve in the military?
My brother did later on, but my dad wasn't. He didn't have to, because my mother went to work at a plant in South Charleston, West Virginia, that made 80% of the rockets used in the Pacific. She went to night school to learn how to run a lathe, and she worked the midnight shift, so Dad would be with me, and my brother was then about 5 or 6, depending. And then she would come home and he would go to work. He was a civil engineer for structural steel. The fact that he was married with 2 children and in that career field was why they didn't want him to go in.
And what branch did your brother serve in?
Army.
And then, so which branch of service did you enlist, or did you go commission?
No, I went to officer training school at Lackland Air Force Base.
So that was the Air Force?
Oh, yeah. Remember, retired, not expired.
So how was basic training for you?
Well, other than having pneumonia halfway through, it wasn't too bad. But what they do in OTS is you have a class, and then you're the underclass, and the upper class graduates before you. Well, I got sick while had been in the upper class about 1 week. And so when I got out of the hospital, I had to wait until the underclass got up to where I'd gotten out before I could drop back in. So instead of being a 3-month, 90-day wonder, I was a little bit more than that. But I graduated on the 4th of February of '64, and my mother's birthday was then.
How were the instructors during basic?
They were excellent.
Do you have any that come to mind? Right, you can still recall?
Yeah, we had one instructor who was really very nice, but he came to work one day with Argyle socks on instead of the black socks. His wife had had surgery the night before on a foot, and she was in a lot of pain. So he tried to dress in the dark so he wouldn't wake her up, you know, because she'd finally gotten to sleep. And so then he gets to the school and he finds out he's got Argyle socks on instead of his black. Well, I had a good laugh over that.
What was your job in the Air Force?
I flew a desk. I worked in personnel. And what a lot of people don't understand is that for every primary mission, which is flying, it takes 2/3 more support personnel to make everything happen. Things like personnel and supply and civil engineering and, you know, all those kinds of things. Because an Air Force base is really a miniature city, and it has to have all the things a city has. But everybody says, "Oh, Air Force, what did you fly?" And so I just tell them a desk.
Did you receive any specialty training?
Yes, I had to go to tech school for 3 months at Amarillo Air Force Base in Texas for training and different things that I had to. No, I took that in Greenville. I'm sorry. I went to Amarillo later for the part of personnel that I was in.
Did you have any overseas duty assignments?
Yes, I was in Ankara, Turkey for a little over 9 months, and then I got to go to Wiesbaden, Germany. when we go to a new assignment, we're assigned a sponsor from the base that we're going to. My sponsor for my first assignment at Randolph Air Force Base across town was a gal that had gotten a job in Germany, and she got married to a guy who got to rotate back before she did. And she was what we had then, WAF Squadron Commander. And she couldn't go until she could find a replacement. So she messaged me, would I come up? And I said yes, because at that time it was the only women could really get a command position at a lower level, you know. Yeah. So I went up there and I spent about 2 years there before I could get my replacement.
What did you do for recreation while you were overseas?
Well, there's always travel, of course, you know, except that we didn't get to go to Israel, which I would have liked to have done because it was during the Turkish Cypriot problem and all those things, and they just couldn't afford to let us go. But I saw a lot of Turkey when I could on the weekends, although I also worked a lot at night and on some weekends because everybody was going to Vietnam then. So that was a bit of a problem. A lot of times I just came home, fixed a chicken pot pie, took my shower and went to bed. Got up and started all over again.
Now, did your duties change when you were overseas?
Well, just see, there's different parts to the personnel career field. And mostly I was in the one called Personal Affairs, which handles things like casualty notification, awards and decorations, and things like that. Okay. So I did that more than anything, but there were times when I also got put into administrative jobs, depending upon what the need was. The needs of the Air Force always come first. That's what we have to teach all the young airmen too. When you fill out your dream sheet for your next assignment, do not put down a base that does not have your job on it, because you won't get to go. Hard lesson for them to learn.
And how was it adapting to military life?
It wasn't bad because I'm kind of detail oriented, and that fit in well, yeah. But there were times when I had bosses that kind of really didn't understand, and so later on I got caught in a reduction in force for active duty officers on extended active duty, and I had to make a choice. I could either get out and stay out, go do something else, or I could get out and come back in. Well, because I was in the career field, I knew I could come back in, which I did after a 2-week interval, so that I could get my 20 years in the quickest way possible.
And then, how did you stay in touch with friends and family when you were overseas?
The usual, you know, letters and whatnot. I mean, nothing's very different about that, except they don't have to pay as much postage to send you something. Yeah, so.
What was your favorite place to travel to while you were over in Europe?
One of my favorite places was a trip we took to Berlin over a Thanksgiving weekend, long weekend. That was really cool because we had to be in uniform, but we got to go through Checkpoint Charlie and go see the other part of Berlin. And since I'm kind of history nut, I was really interested in the older buildings and things, you know. So it was very educational.
Did you have any problems being U.S. military in a foreign country?
Just that I didn't have the problem, but most of us gals were on notice that if we had to leave real quick, we would get duty to help with families leaving. You know, if something came up, because it was still the Cold War, you know.
And with the Cold War going on, did that affect your duties at all?
Just in that sense that I just mentioned, mainly. Otherwise, it wasn't a big deal.
Did you ever have that come up then?
No, but we all knew it could, so we had to be prepared accordingly in our minds, you know, just in case.
And did you ever see any combat situation or witness any casualties?
I didn't witness anything, no. Mostly I had to work with the families that had lost people. When I was at Orlando, I had 4 families I had to work with. The first 2, it was a killed in action kind of thing. I had to make sure they got their benefits, you know. And one of those was a mother whose husband had been a POW in World War II. And she saw me come in and she said, "Not again." And so we expressed our condolences, and we had things to go by from the headquarters there in San Antonio, so we knew what to do. But the next 2 families were MIA at first, and later they became Hanoi Hilton residents. So they were POWs. And they both did get to come home. The one, though, did not get to stay at Clark very long because his mother was dying in Minnesota. So they landed him at Clark and flew him back out as quick as possible, and he got to see his mother before she passed. But that was,
How did those experiences affect you?
Well, I lost my dad when I was 7. My mother's father died the next June. I lost my grandmother when I was a junior in college. That grandmother, my mom's mom. And my dad's mother passed away. She was the last to go, and she didn't quite understand why she was still around. The others had all gone. But so it wasn't too hard on me because I had so much death in the family, I kind of knew how to deal with it. But the young lieutenant who had to take over from me when I left Orlando, he wasn't quite sure about all this. I said, "Well, you just do what Randolph tells you, you'll be fine." Yeah.
And then when you were leaving the military, how did your family receive you?
Well, they didn't really. My mom was gone, so that was not a problem. I don't think anybody minded or anything. I mean, it was just a normal thing to do, after you say you're going to retire.
Yeah. How did the community respond? Since you served during the Vietnam era, did you feel any backlash from that or anything?
No, because I was always over here. I wasn't over there. I'm a Vietnam era veteran, not, from in country. And so I never experienced any of that, but I appreciate what those young men went through when they hit San Francisco and had to put their uniforms in the trash. I think that's a horrible thing. At least now they get to honor their due.
Did you serve anywhere else besides Turkey and...
Germany?
Yeah.
Well, I served a lot of different places, but they were all stateside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any events that happened when you were over there? Anything that you recall that might be funny or different?
Well, one thing I had to laugh, we had to ship our cars, and they could only ship them as far as Istanbul. And Ankar's kind of in the center of the country, so you have to go over with somebody's help to Istanbul to get your car, and then you both come back in your separate cars, And there were some people, my sponsor in Turkey was another WAF, and my boss was a major who had been in the Battle of the Bulge in World War II. He was on an unaccompanied assignment because his son was in high school, and they were hoping, by leaving him at home, he'd get a scholarship for college because he played football. So everyone was talking about what was going to happen with me going over, and he said, "It's all right, Jean's going to go with her, we worked it all out, and he said it was not a problem, and so they said okay. But it's quite a little trip from Aqua to Istanbul and back. We had to kind of spend the night and then come back the next day.
Was it safe?
It might not have been. That's the reason why you wanted somebody with you. Because sometimes there were pirates, even though it's a major road, there would be pirates that would try to take your money or something. You know. So there was, a sense to be warned, you might say, and aware. But we never experienced anything, so we were lucky.
You said you had to stay overnight. How was the accommodations?
It was all right.
Yeah.
Do you remember where you were when the Vietnam War ended?
When it ended, that would have been, let's see, I'm trying to think. I probably was here, somewhere here in this country, I would imagine. Yeah. 'Cause I left there in 68, and I was sent to Altus, Oklahoma, where the C-141s and C-17, they do transition training for those planes at Altus. Pilots that have been something else get to go there to learn how to land, do touch and goes with 27 tires on a C-5. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. In those days, I could watch it because my office building was right next to the runway. But now they have to put up those blocks and things, because of the possible terrorism. It's kind of not so good, but that was pretty amazing. And then Altus is enough west. I don't know if you know, the Anheuser-Busch horses have 3 different teams. One serves the east, one serves the middle, and one serves the west. And one day we got to have the western group come out to the base. And we got to go out and pet them and all that. Man, they're huge. Oh. That was kind of neat.
That's cool.
Do you remember how you felt when the war ended?
I was glad, because having taken care of those families, I didn't want to have to do any more of that, I mean, I was glad to help them, but that's why I went in that career field, because I like to help people. She could tell you.
And how has it been readjusting to civilian life?
Not too bad. I worked part-time until I could get Social Security.
Where'd you work part-time at?
I was a secretary at an insurance company. And then when I got to be 62, I took it then. So I could have that to make up the difference in pay that I wasn't getting because of my RIF in the early 70s. I had to retire as a captain. I had enough commission time to do that, and that's why I still am, rank-wise at this point, but I went to Squadron Officer School while I was in that capacity in Montgomery, Alabama, but later I got to go to the NCO Academy at Barksdale. That was kind of neat. So I literally walked in both sets of shoes, and that was very unusual. Most men had more trouble with it than I did. The other officers couldn't understand how I could do this. I said, well, because I have to earn a living. What am I going to do? It's like, duh.
What made you decide to join the military? And like, at what point in your life were you? Did you have choices to go to school or?
Well, I was in college when I thought I might like to do this, partly because of what my mom had done in the war. And I knew that if I did join, I could get extra knowledge and so on, but I liked the idea of serving my country.
What were you going to school for?
Well, that was another interesting thing. My mom wanted me at home. We had a winter home in DeLand, Florida, and that's home at Stetson University, the Hatters, Stetson hats, you know. And so, but she and Dad had met and married, well, they married at her home in Blair, Ohio, but they met at Ohio U at Athens, Ohio.
Yeah.
And so I said I would do this 2 years at Stetson if I could finish at Ohio U. Well, I'm at Ohio U, and I decided I didn't like my major, but I liked the one my roommate was in. So I talked my mother into a third year at out-of-state prices, no less, you know, being from West Virginia. But she let me do it, and I ended up in what we call home economics, but non-professional. Now, the dean of that college wanted to know what I was going to do. I said, well, I have a deal to go in the Air Force as long as I have a degree, and they don't care what it's in. She said, you will have a job? And I said, yes, ma'am. So she said, okay. So I really was from the College of Arts and Sciences rather than anything else. But the school later changed and put all that under a Health and Human Services, and they keep trying to stick me in that. I said, look, I didn't get my degree in your part. I got it in Arts and Sciences. So now that I'm here, I get to go down to games and things, you know. And one of these days I'm going to go down and try to get that changed. Yeah, so they quit sending me all the Health and Human Services stuff, because that's not what I'm in, you know.
When you got out for your civilian job, did that require any more schooling, or?
No, because it was pretty much admin and, you know, stuff like all my personnel background took care of that, you know.
Have you remained in contact with anyone that you were serving with?
I've tried to, but it's been a little bit difficult because we all move so much, you know. But occasionally, I'm able to get in touch with somebody. Yeah.
Is that just through phone call or email, or do you guys try to meet up?
Well, we haven't met up, but we have tried to phone call or something or write. Yeah. I'm not into email just yet because of my age and everything else, and this hand is also effective for typing as well as writing. But I learned the keyboard the summer after my 8th grade year, so Mom could send me back to prep school with a typewriter and do my papers. So when I get tired of trying to make these fingers work, I just reach over, because I know where all the letters are, and do my writing.
Good deal.
Then, are you a member of any veteran organizations?
Oh, yes.
Which ones?
5.
Ooh.
Wow.
I'm a member of the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary, the Air Force Sergeants Association for my enlisted time, the Military Officers Association of America for that side, let's see, and Disabled Veterans, because I'm 50% DAV. I don't know, is that 5? But it's close, yeah.
Do you hold any positions, or what type of? It sounds like you're an active member in them. Do you hold any positions?
Not at this time,
No.
except in one here in town. I'm the archivist for the Downtown Fairborn Betterment Association, because I did go to training for that in D.C. I went to the National Archives for 2 weeks.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
So do
that
they
was-
just offer classes for that, or?
Yeah, it's classes. Although the last part of the second week we went over to the Library of Congress, and we got to I got to find out that the longtime senator from West Virginia that served so long, his mother had taught him the violin, and he played the tune Going Up to Cripple Creek.
Oh wow!
See, the library can record things that have not been copyrighted. And so that day we were there, I learned all about that. That was really way cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what are some life lessons you've learned from your military service?
I guess how rewarding it is to be helpful to people. For example, when I was at Orlando, I had a young airman who got custody of 2 little children because his wife was on drugs. And so he hired what they call an au pair. And he and the au pair fell in love, and he gets an assignment to Elkland, Iowa, and he can't take the kids unless he's married. So they got married, and then I worked in part of my job at the time involved military passports. So I worked with them on that. Then later on, when I got to Wiesbaden, I'm in the little exchange on Lindsay Air Station where I worked, and at lunchtime, and I see this tall guy walking toward me, and I thought, well, I know him. He walks up, and he says, "How are you?" I said, "Fine. How are you?" And he said, "We've been doing fine ever since you helped us." Boy, that feels good right here.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I also helped an older lady get a passport. Her son was head of the Air Force Material Command at the base there in D.C. And she wanted to go visit her diplomat son in Italy. And she was born in Kansas at an Army fort that her dad was, I guess, at the time or something. So we had to go through all that stuff. And I had to send her stuff over to Tampa instead of D.C. You know, the military ones went to D.C., but this was more like a civilian one, you know. And so then when it came back to my office, and then I called her up, and she came over to get it, and she was thrilled. Mm-hmm. She was an older lady, very sweet.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now I had a question. Did you say that you were a part of the honor flight? You went on the honor flight through Dayton?
Yes. First off, after she took Ed, or was it before, did we start working together?
Maybe after, I'm not sure. Could have been after.
But anyway, she and I usually go over to work the breakfast that everyone gets before they go. And then we come back here and she teaches and I usually go take a nap. And then she picks me up again around 6:30 and we go back in the evening for the welcome home part. And I'm still going to do that, but I put in an app to go with her as my guardian. And they finally approved that partly because of my scoliosis, you know. So she had to do a lot pushing of a wheelchair while I was there. Mm-hmm. At that time, it hurt too much to do a lot of walking. But I could use my cane like for trips to the bathroom or something, you know, short. But it was a really cool thing because I had seen most of them, but not. Since I registered my mom for the World War II memorialist under the Rosie Riveter kind of thing, you know, I was able to take her picture and a copy of the letter that I received showing that I had registered her, and I stood under the West Virginia column and they took my picture.
Aww.
Yeah, and then after we got to greet Bob Dole, he greets every honor flight from everywhere that comes. He's 93 now. That was neat because he was right there where we go to get back on the bus to leave. And I told him, I said, I voted for you back in the time. He smiled. It was real sweet. Gave me a little kiss on the cheek.
Oh.
Yeah. And the Air Force Memorial was kind of unique because I had not been able to see it because it was only 10 years old that year. But one of the board members, Al Bailey, involved me in a ceremony they had there for a missing man kind of thing. And so these 3 ladies, that daughter, granddaughter, and...
I don't know who the other lady was, if she was just a friend or... I'm not sure.
No, I think she was his spouse.
I don't remember, I just remember.
Anyway, they were all related, and the male member had died, you know, in service. And so one of them pushed my wheelchair from one end down to this other end where this thing is for missing man. And we borrowed another board member's flag in a case and put it on a chair down at that end. And they took pictures of all that. Then later she came down to wheel me back because we had to have our box lunch up together.
But it was nice for Anne to get chosen to be asked
to do that.
the flag. And so Ann was like, oh my gosh, it was awesome for Ann.
It was an
a
honor.
privilege. Yeah.
But there was one other female vet on our flight, but she had not seen other stuff, and so and she had only served 4 years, whereas I served all 20. You see, I think that's why Al picked me, and so that was a big honor. And then we went over and looked at other parts of things of people I had known, different Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force that are on a plaque that I knew personally that are gone now.
It's amazing you got to see that.
Yes, it is. It was, and then when we get back on the plane to leave, we had mail call. And you get all kinds of cards and letters from, who knows, kids in school and everything. They put the word out. And she had to help me because I had so much that were falling off my lap.
Luckily, we were right across from each other on the plane.
Yeah. And we finally got all that done. And then when I got off, my cousin Julia, well, she goes by Julie, but her name is Julia on the form. She and her husband were there, and she made this big, huge welcome home Ann sign with all these stickers on it.
Yeah, it wasn't paper. This was metal push pin thing, so it was heavy.
Oh, wow.
She put up, some of them were stickers and some of them were like push pins. This thing was like this, and you noticed it when you were coming down, and she didn't know Julie was coming because Julie told her she didn't think she was going to maybe make it. I knew Julie was coming. And so when we're coming down the walkway from cutting off the plane coming down, and I'm pushing Ann and stuff like that, and then she sees Julie, she's like, Julie! And it's like, I'm trying to hurry, Ann, and she was so excited, and everybody could see that. I think it was on the news, because that sign stood out. It was so nice.
The board member, Al, said, is this for Ann Blotzer? Because he got there first, yeah. And Julie said, yes, I'm her cousin. And so that was really cool. I now have it framed, but it's so heavy, I'm going to have some man come and hang it for me.
A couple anchors.
Yeah.
That's great.
But, and then, do you have the other one?
Mm-hmm, it's in the back one there.
But, and two of the girls here made a sign with her name on it, mine too, Miss Terry and Miss Ann.
They're my students, and they're twins, and they were doing it through probably a service program. And so when they came to class, they actually worked on it while they were here during class time. And so they made it, and when we was going through, and I heard them shout it when we was walking down the final runway, and I heard them shout, "Oh, Miss Terry, Miss Terry," and I looked and I told Ann, like, well, look, they got another sign for us. And at the end, when the thing was done and people were starting to leave, we got the girls to come over, and or actually, of the twins, only one made it through that night. So we had the twin come over with us, and we got a picture of her with us and Ann.
It was really sweet.
And we also had Ed there. So my husband had brought Ed to greet us coming back, and my mom and my sister came from Wisconsin to greet us coming back from honor flight. So I have a picture of...
Way cool. Her
we have a
mom
picture-
and I are the same age,
Yeah.
so we really click.
And they have similarity issues and like that. And so we had pictures of the family, of everybody who came as a group. We had her family in there, my family, and Greg was there, and he took pictures of us. And so
He gave me a bouquet of flowers.
he did. As he was coming down the first one, he was standing by this podium, and as soon as he seen us coming, he reached back and he came over and gave Ann a flower. So she got to hold the flowers through the whole thing. That was
Yeah.
nice.
He's such a gentleman.
He's very nice.
Yeah.
And then, how has your military service impact your feelings about war and the military in general?
I think the civilian side of the military, i.e. the senators and congressmen, get too involved in parts of it they should not be. In other words, they try to micromanage instead of macromanage. And if you have not served, you don't know what the soldier or airman or naval person encounters when they're actually in battle. And they need to not have so many constraints put on them. This has to do with the rules of engagement. You can't shoot until you're shot at, and yet you can be almost sure that somebody's going to be shooting at you. So, I mean, they need to let the people in the field who know what the real situation is do their job. That's the thing I don't like today that I see. You know, but the military does try to do right by its people, at least. I like this, I don't know what Trump's going to do about VA, but Bob McDonald, he has done a wonderful job. He really has. I would love for him to just be able to stay and finish what he started. But I doubt that's going to happen, but we haven't heard any word about what he's going to do on that yet. They're real concerned now about the next Supreme Court appointee, I guess, according to this morning's news.
Then, is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should add to the interview?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Did you tell them that you're going to do artwork?
Oh, well, yeah, she got me. Well, I should explain how I got started here. I got involved because I got a Quilt of Valor for my service at Orlando. So I started taking quilting classes over at Springfield Creative Fires. And I made 2 wall hangings. And then subsequently I decided I wanted to make, can you get the little tray so we can show them? I wanted to make a thing to put on the side of my house. I have an L-shaped house.
Small replica.
It's on the corner of Central and Garland. And so I wanted to make one of these, you know, on 3 foot by 3 foot exterior plywood. And I had to get her to help me to paint it because I'm no good at math. And we had to take the picture from a quilting book and figure out how to make it big enough and
Dimensions.
you know, make it like this, you know. And so she helped me with that, and I did all the painting. And then a friend from church is pretty handy. For a whole year, he studied it. His wife was scared to death because he was going to hang this for me, you see, on my house. And if this is Central Avenue and this is Garland Avenue, it's on this side up above, you know. It's got it like this, and it's down enough to fit in the space there.
Oh, wow.
And so he studied it for a long time, and we went to Ace Hardware, he and I both did, and we figured out ways he could do this, you know. But he has a pickup truck, so he got one of those extension ladder things, and he put a board across it, and he set that on the tailgate, and he could climb up on that, and everything worked pretty good. And I stayed right there and, you know, made sure that nothing fell or whatever. And in 30 minutes, we had it up. He did just fine. His wife thought he was at the gym the whole time. But later, he finally did take her by and showed it to her, and she was very impressed with it, you know. And then I have another friend who served in the Army, and when I saw the bear over there that she painted, I decided I'd like to paint one for him, because we're both Episcopalians. And we used to go to church together in Colorado Springs, but he lives in Tucson, Arizona now. His wife's a Roman Catholic, but you know, it works. And so when I get this done, he's going to get that one. But I'm not going to do another one of those because it's kind of hard on me.
Do you want to put it to show it on in front of you? So
Show
they
it.
can see
Oh.
Put it in front of you. There you go.
I've done that much of the front and this much of the back. But I also had to get new glasses because there's little lines here, you know, for each of the little sections, and I was having trouble seeing. I still have a little bit of trouble. So I'm not going to do another one of these once I get this one.
Want to try that?
Yes, we can show them that too.
Okay. So she does different things. She paints on pottery and she paints on canvases. That one?
This is the green at Ohio U.
Oh, yeah, you can pull it back a little bit.
And this is Cutler Hall, the oldest building on campus. It houses the president's office. And this is Wilson Hall. And this is McGuffey Hall. You know McGuffey readers? Well, McGuffey was the 3rd president of Ohio U. So that's named after him. But there's a lot of other stuff involved. I took this from a panorama thing. So we call this folk art because I can't get as detailed as that thing was. Mm-hmm. But I painted it for the McDavises because they're going to retire. Well, from being a president. He's got another job now that he's going to go to in D.C. He's going to work for the company that helps colleges find new presidents. And he's got 3 to 5 years, maybe, but their retirement home is going to be in Gainesville, Florida. And they leave the 17th, and I only go to day games. I do not go to night games at Ohio because it's an hour and 40 minutes one way. And it's not that, I mean, I can stay up late at home in jammies, but I don't want to drive back and not get home till 1 o'clock in the morning driving, you know. So I just go to the day games. Well, there's one this Saturday. They play Akron, and I'm going to meet Mrs. McDavis at the OUN. I'm going to give him this, and she's going to make a copy for me, because I figure she can take this one to Gainesville, and he can take the other. We'll put it in a frame like she's got over there, and he can take it to the apartment he's going to have in D.C. And we're doing this just in time, because they leave the 17th, and the next day game is until the 18th. So this is, I enjoy doing things for people, and this is, I told you about my initials. This is how I do it. A, M, and F.
Hold it up in the air. Hold it up in the air. There you go.
See? I've done that for a long time whenever I've done anything artistically, you know. So,
Do you find art to be therapeutic?
yes, I do. And thanks to her, I can do it, because I did a painting like one over yonder, and I did it for a guy who used to work for our chamber, but he's director of development for Greene County. Now he has a small office. He wanted 9 by 12 of this painting, so I did that for him and gave it to him recently. I enjoy being able to do things for people. Yeah, kind of fits my career, for you might say.
So, and with Ed, when I do a lot of things with Ed, Ann also does a lot of things for Ed, you know, and so she might buy him, she bought a little Christmas tree for decoration. Before we went to Hawaii, she bought him a navy coat and a navy hat, and it's like that, and so she buys him things and she does stuff for him.
And I packed his suitcase, which was on loan from me, a carry-on kind, you know, but I packed it for him for the trip, because he didn't know. In fact, we had to go back to exchange to get the right size travel things. He had a huge can of shaving lotion, and they sell travel size ones, you know. So we went back to the exchange and got what he needed, and along that line, I packed all that for him. It's very good. Yeah, he was very pleased. And it worked out all right, didn't it?
Yep, and you also make sure he's updated on his military pins and...
Yeah,
and
because of
badges.
Wards and Decks, his Pearl Harbor survivor hat now has his ribbons on it for the 5 ribbons he earned.
So when we go places, I make sure he wears this hat so people know that he's a Pearl Harbor survivor. And it stands out a lot more than just a ball cap that says Preble on it. This really stands out more representational. So.
And people can see what honors he earned. Yeah.
Wow.
So we contribute what we're each good at, you might say.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So we'll be wrapping things up here. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view/hear this interview?
That you don't have to serve. It's not meant for everyone. But if you do serve, it can be an honor. It can be a real honor. You can learn a lot. You can grow from it. Yeah. Especially a lot of enlisted people can get their college done with the help of the military. And, you know, one thing I often have had mothers ask me is, what should my son know? I said, can he make a bed with hospital corners? Does he know how to do his laundry? Like, don't put your black socks in with your white t-shirts. You're going to end up with gray. And that sort of thing. I said, if they can know those 2 things before you let them go, they can handle the rest of it. So that's the lesson for mommies and sons, you might say. But, you know, if you feel like you might want to do something, I encourage people, and I'm always happy to talk to them about it if they want to know. Should they go or not, you know.
Well, that concludes our interview, and thank you for taking the time to do this interview, and thank you so much for your service.
Well, thank you for doing the interview. I appreciate it.